the invitation to join our experience with the collective approach in the Netherlands with you all. I will do the first part of the introduction, and Harm will go into more in the practical details about working in a collective. That's because that's his work. The next slide, please. Maybe something about me. I am Alex Datema. I am a dairy farmer in the north part of the Netherlands. Just a plain dairy farm with about 110 cows, 70 hectares of grassland, and we take part in the meadow bird protection scheme. And beside that, I am chairman of Farmers and Nature, BoerenNatuur in Dutch. But Farmers and Nature means just what it says. It's about farmers who want to give nature also a place on their farm. So the first part of our introduction goes about why did we choose for the collective approach in the Netherlands for the agri-environmental schemes, and how does it work on the national level? What are the basic rules for this approach? In the second part, Harm will tell you more about how it is working out in practice. Next, please. Well, BoerenNatuur, Farmers and Nature is the umbrella organization of all the 40 collectives in the Netherlands. And our responsibility at the national level is plainly to make sure that we have a good contact with the government on different levels, but also with other parties, with NGOs and universities. Also, what we try to do is, well, we had a big shift in responsibilities in the whole system. So the carrying out of the whole agri-environmental scheme is now a responsibility of the 40 collectives. And that's why we, on national level, Farmers and Nature, try to support our collectives with this. It still is a subsidy from the EU, so it has very strict conditions. So it's also, we also try to influence in Brussels the next cap, so we have more space for this kind of experiment and with this kind of this way of working. So we are also carrying out at the moment 7 pilots to look at the future of the cap and to make it more suitable for the way we think it should work. Another task we do at the national level is try to spread knowledge, to gain new knowledge, but also spread knowledge about how does agroecology works and how the management works and the monitoring, and that's one of our tasks. And last but not least, it's at the bottom, but it's the backbone of the whole work we do, is an IT system for registering all the measurements we take. And that IT system, I will go into that later, but it's the backbone of how we work. It also makes sure that if you want to join the agri-environmental schemes in the Netherlands, you can only do that in one way, and that is by joining a collective. It's not possible to do it in another way. Next, please. Now, what we had in the past, this is why we wanted the new system. In the past, we had that it was the system we had was just focusing on one farm and not on a landscape, and not more on. So it was only too small. There were a lot of errors, and the implementation costs were very high because of the system. Especially what we wanted as farmers was that we wanted a more flexible system. We wanted a system that is where it is possible to during the year look at nature, what's happening in nature, and adjust the measures you take on your farm by what is happening in the field. And the old system we had, it was just, well, you had a contract for 6 years and that was it. There was no possibility to change it along the way. Another fact is that we have in the Netherlands a long tradition of working together as farmers in cooperatives, and also in the agri-environmental parts on the farm. We have already groups of farmers working together that they started 25 to 30 years ago working together. So it's not strange for us to work together on this kind of developments. And since 2016, it was the first time that it was possible to work with a farmers collective. Next, please. Now, this is a comparison between what it was, the system before 2016 and what we have now. In the old system, you had a contract between an individual farmer and the government. And the contract was fixed for 6 years. And there was no guidance that farmers should work together. And also during the 6 years, there was no guidance to help the farmers to do the best thing. There also was no guidance of which farmer could join the scheme. It was just that if the scheme was put open, who first came had the first contract. So it was not adjustable to what is happening really in the field. The whole scheme costed a lot of money. About 40% of the budget was lost. I call it lost on the transaction costs. So we said together with the government that we needed a different system, a system that operates on a landscape scale, because we said if you want to protect meadowbirds or arable birds or other species, you have to create a habitat, and you cannot create a habitat on the scale of one parcel or on the scale of one farm. You should do that on landscape scale. So we need a system where farmers are obliged to work together. So that is why we chose for the collective approach. So we can look at the landscape scale at that level at organizing the measurements. But you need then a party who can organize the farmers and take the farmers together. And we always said, because of the long tradition of cooperations in the Netherlands, we the farmers can do that ourselves. We do not need the government to organize the farmers, we can do that ourselves. And that is why we have now 40 collectives who have the contracts with the farmers. If you have such an organization as a collective, you can also the ecological guidance of the measurements can be organized in that way. I think that Harm will tell you more about that. And on the other hand, as a farmers, we are not the only ones working in the field, so we have to have also contact with other stakeholders in the area, and that's also a task of the collective. And now all collectives are certified, so they are able to get the money from the paying agency and also pay the farmers who do the schemes. The next, please. So in the Netherlands, the collective have they have a deal. They have to make a contract with the province, so not the national government, but the province. And there are 4 habitat types in the Netherlands that are in the agri-environmental scheme. It's about open grassland, open arable land, dry habitat networks, and wet habitat networks. The next, please. The work is quite, it works in this way. So you see the map of the Netherlands, and we have 40 collectives. So we cover the whole of the Netherlands. At the moment, there are about 10,000 farmers joining this scheme. And that means that almost 20% of the farmers in the Netherlands take part in the agri-environmental schemes and are a member of a collective. The task of the collective is more or less depends a little bit on the province. The province says, well, I have money and I have an aim, a goal. I want to have more meadowbirds. I want to protect arable birds. And then on the map of the province, the province will say, well, in this area, we think this is a suitable area for meadowbird protection. Mostly the map is drawn in cooperation with the collectives involved. The next step that the collective then takes is based on the amount of money the province has available, the collective makes a plan for the management. So I take the meadowbird protection as an example. If the province says, well, we have enough money for about 1,000 hectares of meadowbird protection, the collective will make a management plan. What should we do to protect the meadowbirds in this area? Based on that plan, they will find the farmers. So they first make a plan of what to do, what should be done, and then they make contact with the farmers and ask them, do you want to join the scheme, and which measurements do you want to take on your farm? If that is done, the collective makes a collective claim and makes a contract with the province to carry out the whole scheme. During the year, the collective is also obliged to inspect and look at if the farmers carry out the work good enough. They guide or they help the farmers by taking decisions on what kind of measurements they want to take and what to do. And we also monitor the measurements and the results. And we try to, and that's the hard part, to monitor also the results in the number of birds. But that's difficult still. The next, please. We also, to make it more visible for people, we also use often this this drawing, and we talk also always about the front door and the back door. You see the cooperative, the collective is in the middle, and the front door there is the government. So the collective has on the front door a contract with the government, and on the back door it has contracts with individual land managers. By organizing it in this way, you have the possibility to vary a lot of things, because the cooperative is the one who gets paid by the government, and is also the one who is checked by the government. So if there's something wrong, the cooperative is the one they will adjust for that. The basic principle of this system is that if you have this, the front door and the back door, that what we promise to the front door to the government, and we have to make it up with the land managers, with the farmers at the back door, we can vary in numbers of hectares and also in the amount of money we pay per hectare, as long as we get up with the contract on the front door. The best way of explaining it is that way: if a collective has a contract on the front door with the government for 1,000 hectares of meadow bird protection, it will make sure that it has on the back door not 1,000 hectares of meadow bird protection, but they make a contract for 1,100 hectares of meadow bird protection. So is there something going wrong, we can always meet up with a contract on the front door. And it's also for the collective, they can decide themselves how much money they will pay for the different measurements that are taken in the contract with the farmer. So they have a lot of responsibility for doing things and how they organize things. And next, please. So I think most of what is on this slide I already told. There is a goal for the different habitat types from the province. The collective makes a plan, and on that plan they make an average price. So, and that's how they earn their money about the contract. I see there's a little Dutch in there, but based on gederfde inkomsten is income forgone. That's what the payment is based on. The RVO is the payment agency in the Netherlands. They carry out the checks if the activities of the collectives are right, and the paying agency also pays the collectives. And the last is we have every year a conversation between the collectives and the provinces about how the results of the work is going well. If the results are going well. On the back door is the contract between the collective and the farmer is a private contract. So it's nothing to do with the government anymore. So in the contract with the farmer, it goes about the specific measurements that the farmer takes. It goes about the compensation he gets. It also states that the collective has the right to check on the spot whether to see that the farmer is doing his work very good enough, and the collective pays the farmer if he has done everything he needs to do. What we need to do all this is that we have an ICT system where we use the map that the paying agency also uses. So every farmer is registered by the paying agency in the Netherlands, and we have a digital map about his area, his farm, and we use that same map to draw the measurements with the contract of the farmer with us. Details the measurements he's taking, and we can draw it on this same map that the RVO uses. This is how the way it looks that the government can almost instantly see if we take any guidance what we are doing. Next, please. Yeah, this one. The province, if you talk about monitoring and evaluation of the whole system, is that the provinces are responsible for the policy monitoring, and that is about the development of the habitats in the bird species, and that's a long story. That takes a long time, and the system is now 4 years on its way, and the policy monitoring is not telling so much at this moment. I will take more years to know what if the system is working very well. What we, the collectives, are self-responsible for is the habitat monitoring. So we are We are every year, if in a region we take a lot of measurements, during the year we look if it's working well, so we can adjust the whole scheme of the whole plan next year. So it's a circle of a year that every year we try to do it better. Next, please. And now it's the turn for Harm to take it over.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, this was a whole mouthful, and I can imagine some ears had to work very hard. This is very technical, a lot of talk about policy, but yeah, in the end, it's all aimed to make this work in the field to help the farmer do the work that is necessarily, and to work sincerely goal-oriented. And for that, next slide. So our management is aimed at species. It has to serve a certain set of species, and in this way, it's also an issue of where in the past it was a subsidy, where a farmer would get a contract for 6 years, and it was often seen like that. It is a nice extra thing to do. It's a subsidy of farmland. And now we are looking more in what was just coming from the English, more results oriented to deliver a product just like the other products that the farmer is delivering. So first in a collective, first what we were talking about is what purpose is served with the environmental scheme. And to determine an ambition on that. What is the common goal that we have as a collective? And also to maintain commitment to reach these goals, not just to serve your contract for 6 years, but to actually every year look, are we going in the right direction? And then also within this collective to see what does the individual have to deliver? And what do you have to do to change this habitat? You see here a group of farmers standing in a field managed for the great partridge. They are looking, what are we doing now? Is this the habitat that our birds need? Next slide. So then we also looking, is it just for specific species or biodiversity at large? To take this great partridge again, we have to look, are the partridges doing well, or is this field, are there more different types of flowers? Are there insects in there? Because maybe the great partridge, the weather was just named, we can have very wet years, that's always bad for partridge, they will not do well. But there should always be something else that is then taking a profit of this management. And then, of course, you are looking more at biodiversity at large on a landscape scale. And then I think that's also a big change with the past, with this set contract that you have. It was not always easy to implement in the work of the farmer just on his field for his farming products. So now with a more flexible contract, you can actually look very well how the farmer can implement it in his work. So that is very important to get results. Of course, then also to find the intrinsic motivation that the farmer has. Maybe we have, for example, management for hamsters in the Netherlands. But the hamster you never see. Maybe the farmer has a lot more with the I don't know the English name, the blue flower in these arable fields, or with the skylark. My back on the photograph. If you manage your fields for these species, then of course it's good for a hamster also. So to find the intrinsic motivation, whether the farmer actually likes to do his management for is very important also in this collective approach. Then to know what your role is within the wider landscape, and especially in a collective, what do I mean for my neighbor? If I'm mowing too early, then this does have a negative effect of what you're trying to reach in the whole area. That's on a negative point of view. On a positive point of view, if the one farmer can do meadow management and the farmer next to it can do hedgerow management, together you're getting a role in your landscape. Next slide. Yeah, and the last picture showed that also to assist farmers and deepen knowledge, to work together with experts of ecology to look at are we going towards the habitat that these species need, and to deepen knowledge. We have many field days, either with a small group of farmers, 10 or maybe just individual. To talk a lot, because we have seen brochures are very fine, but with a farmer in the field working to put a shovel in the ground, to look at your soil, to look at the species that are there. He may not even have to know what species is there, but farmer knows nature very well, maybe not on a species level, but he can see what a species-rich grassland is and which is not, and also what maybe are the benefits for his cows in that, because that again is that's where the heart is most with the farmer. So to find this connection with his agricultural activities and with his biodiversity. And a trust relationship, to work on that is of course a very big aspect. Not just between the farmers themselves, with us in the collective, but also with government. Yeah, if you're getting this contract on the front door, this government needs to know that you're actually working to help these species that you're doing it for. And because flexibility is always, for a government, is always a bit scary, because it also means that they do not have the hold that they were used to have. But this flexibility at the same time does help in getting the right things done with farmers. Then of course monitoring is a big aspect. Alex, that's not, it's to see every year, are we going in the right direction? Do we have to change some things in our management to change this habitat? And then of course to cooperate with all the other players within the landscape that you're working on, the nature agencies, but also local municipalities. Yeah, these are things to change things on a landscape levels. Yeah, there's a link there. We will not show it now. There's a little movie made by BoerenNatuur which explains the role of the farmer, the field coach, and the coordinator, and how that works together to get these things done. I think it's very worthwhile to watch that. It's in Dutch, but it's subtitled in English. I think, is there another slide? A slide with thank you for your attention.